The cold sleep chamber hissed open, and Jake Morrison gasped his first breath in 50 years. His eyes struggled to focus as the bright lights above him slowly dimmed to a comfortable level. The metallic taste in his mouth reminded him of the last time he had been awake, when the world was burning and humanity was dying. Jake sat up slowly, his muscles protesting after decades of disuse. The medical bay around him looked different than he remembered. The walls were sleeker, the equipment more advanced. Everything had a strange blue glow that he did not recognize from before the long sleep. "Welcome back, Commander Morrison," a familiar voice said from speakers hidden in the walls. Oracle, the ship's artificial intelligence, had been his constant companion during the final days of the war. "You have been asleep for exactly 50 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Jake swung his legs over the side of the chamber and tried to stand. His knees buckled, and he grabbed the nearby rail for support. "Oracle, give me a status report. How many of us are left?" 3,047 humans remain alive aboard the UNS Defiance. All are in good health. The ship itself has undergone significant modifications during your sleep period. The door to the medical bay slid open, and a woman in a blue uniform walked in. Jake recognized her immediately despite the years that had passed. Lisa Parker had been a young engineering officer when they went into hiding. Now she wore the insignia of a chief engineer, and her face showed the wisdom of someone who had carried great responsibility. "Jake, it's good to see you awake," Lisa said with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "We have a lot to discuss." Jake nodded and followed her out of the medical bay. The corridors of the Defiance looked nothing like he remembered. The walls were lined with what appeared to be alien technology, seamlessly integrated with human designs. Soft lights pulsed along the ceiling, and the air itself seemed to hum with energy. "Lisa, what happened to our ship?" Jake asked as they walked toward the command section. "Oracle spent the first 10 years just keeping us alive and hidden," Lisa explained. "But after that, things got interesting. The AI started sending out mining drones to collect materials from asteroids. Then it began building automated factories. Eventually, it started capturing alien ships that wandered too close to our position. They entered a lift that moved smoothly upward. Jake noticed there were no buttons or controls visible anywhere. Oracle reverse-engineered everything it could get its hands on," Lisa continued. "Alien weapons, shields, engines, computers. The AI combined the best of their technology with our own designs. What we have now is something entirely new." The lift doors opened to reveal the command center of the Defiance. Jake stepped out and stopped in amazement. The bridge was 3 times larger than before, with holographic displays floating in the air showing star charts, ship status, and tactical information. Officers moved between stations that seemed to respond to their touch and thoughts. "My God," Jake whispered. "Hello, old friend," a voice called from across the bridge. Captain Alex Turner approached with his arms open. The 2 men embraced, and Jake could see that Alex had aged well despite the burden of command he had carried alone for so many years. "Alex, I can't believe what I'm seeing," Jake said, looking around the transformed bridge. "This isn't the same ship we went to sleep in." "No, it's not," Alex agreed. "Oracle, show Jake what we've learned about the galaxy while we've been gone." A large holographic display appeared in the center of the bridge, showing a 3-dimensional map of local space. Red zones covered most of the inhabited systems, while only a few areas remained yellow or green. "The Zephyrian Coalition controls everything now," Alex explained. "The Vorthak Empire leads them, with the Kresh swarms providing most of the military muscle. They've enslaved or destroyed every species that opposed them." Jake studied the map carefully. "What about the neutral systems? The Andromedans? The Ethereals?" "Still independent, but barely," Lisa answered. "The Coalition has been slowly expanding into their territory. Most species are too afraid to resist after what happened to us." Alex touched a control and the display zoomed in on a system near the edge of Coalition space. "This is where we are now, hidden in the Kepler system's outer asteroid belt. Oracle has been monitoring Coalition communications for decades. We know their patrol routes, their supply lines, their military strength. And we know their weaknesses," Oracle's voice added from the speakers. Jake walked to one of the floating displays and touched it. Information flowed across the screen showing ship designs, weapon specifications, and tactical analyses. "Oracle, how advanced are we compared to Coalition forces? In terms of raw firepower, we are now superior to any single Coalition vessel. Our shields can withstand their heaviest weapons. Our engines are faster and more efficient. Most importantly, our weapons can penetrate their defenses with ease. But there are thousands of coalition ships, Jake pointed out. We're still just one vessel with 3,000 people. Alex smiled grimly. That's where you're wrong, my friend. Show him, Oracle. The holographic display changed to show the interior of the Defiance. Jake could see vast manufacturing bays, fighter construction facilities, and weapon storage areas that had not existed before. Automated systems moved constantly, building and repairing equipment. We've been preparing for this day for 50 years, Alex said. The ship can now build and maintain a full fighter wing. We have weapons that the Coalition has never seen. Most importantly, we have something they lost long ago. What's that? Jake asked. Hope, Lisa answered. Oracle has identified over 200 prison camps where human survivors are being held as slave laborers. There are also resistance movements on dozens of worlds, waiting for someone to give them a chance to fight back. Jake felt a familiar fire building in his chest, the same feeling he had experienced during the darkest days of the war, when everything seemed lost but humanity refused to give up. What's the plan? Alex gestured toward the tactical display. We start small. Hit their supply lines, rescue our people, gather intelligence. We let the galaxy know that humanity is not extinct, but we do it carefully, revealing only what we need to. A coalition supply convoy will pass through this system in 6 hours, Oracle announced. 12 cargo vessels with a single escort. It would make an excellent first target. Jake looked at his old friends and felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders once again. 50 years ago, they had been forced to run and hide while their homeworld burned. Now they had the chance to remind the galaxy why humanity had once been respected and feared. Then let's give them something to remember, Jake said. Oracle, bring all systems to full readiness. It's time to announce our return. The bridge hummed with activity as the crew prepared for their first battle in half a century. Outside the armored windows of the command center, the stars waited silently for the storm that was about to be unleashed upon an unsuspecting galaxy. The emergency session of the Coalition High Command convened within hours of receiving the survivor reports from the destroyed convoy. Supreme Chancellor Vexthul, his reptilian features twisted in disbelief, paced the length of the massive war room on Zephyr Prime. The holographic displays around him showed the wreckage of 12 supply ships and the heavy cruiser Bloodclaw, all reduced to drifting debris. This is impossible, Vexthul hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air nervously. Humans are extinct. We made certain of this 50 years ago. General Krikstar, leader of the Kresh military forces, clicked his mandibles in disagreement. His insectoid head tilted as he studied the tactical reports. The attack patterns match old human doctrine, Chancellor. Coordinated fighter strikes, precision targeting, minimal collateral damage to cargo that could be useful. You speak of ghosts and legends, Vexthul snapped. Our forces eliminated every human world, every human fleet. Earth itself burns to this day. A side door opened and guards escorted a woman in prison clothes into the chamber. Admiral Kate Phillips walked with her head held high despite the energy shackles around her wrists. Her gray hair was longer than military regulation, and scars marked her face from years of harsh treatment. But her eyes burned with the same fierce intelligence that had made her the Coalition's most feared human opponent. Our pet human strategist, Vexthul said with mock courtesy. Tell us, Admiral Phillips, how would your extinct species destroy an entire convoy with perfect efficiency? Kate studied the tactical displays for several minutes before speaking. They would use modified fighter craft, probably upgraded with captured Coalition technology. The attack would begin with electronic warfare to blind your sensors, followed by coordinated strikes on engine and weapon systems to prevent escape or effective resistance. Exactly what happened, General Krikstar admitted reluctantly. The survivors reported that human fighters appeared and disappeared like phantoms, Kate continued. This suggests advanced stealth technology, probably adaptive camouflage combined with electronic countermeasures. Your people were fighting an enemy they could barely see. Chancellor Vexthul struck the table with his clawed fist. How could humans possess such technology? They were primitives when we destroyed them. Kate smiled coldly. You never understood us. Humans learn from their enemies. If any survived your purge, they would have spent every day since then studying your weaknesses and preparing for revenge. The holographic display changed to show intercepts of communications throughout Coalition space. Reports were flowing in from dozens of systems, all describing strange readings on long-range sensors, unexplained equipment failures, and missing patrol ships. The pattern painted a picture of systematic intelligence gathering. They have been watching us, General Krickstar realized, learning our patrol routes, our supply schedules, our defensive positions. More than that, Kate said, her voice growing stronger. If I know humans, they have been building, preparing, planning not just to survive but to win. The door chimed and Commander Kira Voss entered the chamber. The Meridian woman had served the Coalition faithfully since her world's conquest, rising through the ranks despite her species' second-class status. She carried a datapad filled with fresh intelligence reports. Chancellor, we have confirmed sightings of unknown vessels in 7 different systems over the past month, Kira reported. All reports describe ships matching no known design in our databases. Show me, Vexthul demanded. The display shifted to show blurry sensor images of sleek vessels that seemed to blend human and alien design elements. The ships were larger than typical human fighters but smaller than Coalition cruisers, and they moved with impossible grace through space. Our analysts believe these are reconnaissance vessels, Kira continued. They appear briefly on sensors, gather information, and vanish before our ships can intercept. Kate studied the images with growing excitement. They are testing your defenses, mapping your capabilities. These are not random attacks, Chancellor. This is the beginning of a campaign. One ship cannot threaten the entire Coalition, General Krickstar protested. Even with superior technology, they lack the numbers to pose a real threat. You assume it is one ship, Kate replied. But humans think differently than you do. We do not build single superweapons. We build fleets, networks, systems that support each other. The communication console began flashing with urgent priority messages. The operator, a young Vorthak officer, looked up with visible fear. Chancellor, we are receiving reports from across the outer territories. Prison camps are reporting unexplained power failures and communication blackouts. Guard posts are going silent. Vexthul felt his blood run cold. The Coalition maintained hundreds of labor camps throughout their territory, many of them housing the last surviving humans taken during the Purge. How many camps have reported problems? 17 so far, Chancellor. The pattern seems to be spreading inward from the frontier systems. Kate laughed, a sound that sent chills through every Coalition officer in the room. You kept us alive. You kept my people alive to work in your mines and factories. You gave them 50 years to plan and organize and wait for rescue. Impossible, General Krickstar buzzed. The camps are heavily guarded. Humans cannot simply escape. They are not escaping, Kate said, her eyes bright with understanding. They are being liberated. By their own people. The same people who just destroyed your convoy without losing a single fighter. The tactical display updated again, showing the locations of all reported incidents. A clear pattern emerged, with the attacks moving steadily inward toward more heavily defended systems. Each successful raid provided the attackers with more intelligence, more resources, and more rescued humans to join their cause. This is coordinated, Commander Voss observed. Someone with detailed knowledge of our security protocols and defensive positions is planning these operations. Kate nodded approvingly at the younger woman. Finally, someone who understands the situation. Yes, this is coordinated. Professional, military. You are not facing scattered survivors or desperate refugees. You are facing the human military, returned and improved. Chancellor Vexthul activated the emergency communication system that connected him to every Coalition commander in the galaxy. His image appeared on screens throughout civilized space as he prepared to address his forces. To all Coalition military personnel, he began, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. Be advised that human survivors have been confirmed active in our territory. These terrorists are responsible for recent attacks on our supply lines and prison facilities. I am authorizing maximum force against any human vessels or personnel encountered. He paused, making sure every word carried weight. Furthermore, I am placing a bounty of 1 million credits on any information leading to the capture or destruction of these human raiders. All species under Coalition protection are required to report any suspicious activity immediately. As the transmission ended, Kate Phillips began to laugh again. The sound echoed through the war room like the promise of storms to come. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, Vexthul, she said. You told the galaxy that humans are alive, that we survived your genocide. Every species you have conquered, every world you have enslaved, now knows that the Coalition can be beaten. The Supreme Chancellor realized with growing horror that the human woman was right. In his anger and fear, he had just announced to billions of oppressed beings that their legendary liberators had returned from the dead. The Coalition supply convoy moved through space in perfect formation, 12 massive cargo ships protected by the heavy cruiser Bloodclaw. Admiral Thexkar stood on his command bridge watching the stars drift past. His reptilian mind focused on the routine patrol schedule that had kept Coalition space secure for decades. Estimated arrival at Meridian System in 4 hours, Admiral, his navigation officer, reported. The young Vorthok had never seen real combat, having grown up in the peaceful years after humanity's extinction. Thexkar nodded absently, his thoughts drifting to the old wars. He had been there when the last human world burned, had watched their final fleet die in the darkness between stars. The memory still brought him satisfaction after all these years. "Sir, I'm picking up some unusual readings on the long-range sensors," the sensor operator called out. "Probably just space debris, but the signature is odd." "Show me," Thexkar ordered, moving to the tactical display. The screen showed their convoy as blue dots moving through empty space, with a few scattered red blips at the edge of sensor range. "Could be asteroid fragments," the operator suggested, but they seemed to be moving in formation. Before Thexkar could respond, the red blips vanished from the display entirely. The sensor operator adjusted his controls frantically, trying to regain contact with whatever had been out there. Sensor ghosts, Thexkar decided. Old equipment playing tricks. Continue on course. 3,000 kilometers away, Jake Morrison adjusted his fighter's stealth systems and watched the Coalition convoy through his upgraded sensors. The human craft was completely invisible to enemy detection, its hull covered in adaptive camouflage that bent light and sensor beams around it. "Ghost Leader to all units," Jake spoke into his communication system. "Target identification complete. 12 cargo vessels, 1 heavy cruiser, standard Coalition defensive formation." 24 voices acknowledged his transmission as the human strike force prepared for their first battle in 50 years. Each pilot had been carefully selected from the Defiance's crew, trained on the new fighters for months while the ship remained hidden. "Remember, we want 1 cargo ship to survive and carry the news," Jake continued. "All other targets are weapons-free. Lisa, are you monitoring from the Defiance?" "Copy, Ghost Leader," Lisa Parker's voice came through clearly. "All systems green. Oracle is tracking the entire engagement." "Good hunting." Jake switched to squadron frequency. "All units begin attack run. Follow my lead and keep your stealth systems active until the last moment." The human fighters moved like shadows through space, their engines producing no heat signature, and their hulls invisible to both optical and electronic sensors. They closed to within 500 meters of the convoy before Jake gave the final order. "Go, squadron. Light them up." 25 human fighters materialized out of empty space around the Coalition convoy, their weapons fired in perfect coordination, sending streams of plasma energy into the cargo ship's engine sections. The first 4 vessels were crippled before the Coalition crews even realized they were under attack. Admiral Thexkar felt his bridge shake as emergency alarms began screaming throughout the Bloodclaw. "Report," he roared, grabbing the command rail as another impact rattled the ship. "Unknown attackers, sir," his tactical officer shouted over the noise, multiple small craft appearing and disappearing from sensors. "I count at least 20 hostiles." The main display showed the tactical situation as red enemy markers flickered in and out of existence around their convoy. 3 cargo ships were already drifting powerless, their engines destroyed by precision strikes. "Return fire," Thexkar ordered. "All batteries, target those fighters." The Bloodclaw's weapons opened fire, sending energy beams and missiles toward the attacking craft. But the human fighters seemed to dance between the incoming fire, their movements too fast and unpredictable for the Coalition targeting systems. Jake rolled his fighter through a barrage of enemy fire and locked onto the cruiser's main weapon array. "Ghost 3 and 4, take out their missile launchers. Ghost 5 through 8, disable those cargo ships. Leave number 7 intact." His plasma cannons fired, sending coherent energy straight into the Bloodclaw's forward battery. The Coalition weapons exploded in brilliant flashes as their power systems overloaded. Secondary explosions rippled along the cruiser's hull as ammunition stores cooked off. "Impossible," Thexkar whispered as he watched his ship's defenses being systematically destroyed. Human fighters were never this advanced. They used primitive kinetic weapons and chemical rockets. "Sir, the attackers are using some kind of adaptive stealth technology," his sensor officer reported. "I can track them for a few seconds, then they vanish again. It's like they're bending our sensors around themselves." Another human fighter appeared directly in front of the bridge windows, its sleek hull gleaming with alien technology. Thexkar could see the pilot's helmet through the cockpit canopy, and for a moment their eyes met across the vacuum of space. Then the fighter fired, and the Bloodclaw's main sensor array disappeared in a ball of superheated plasma. The Coalition convoy was falling apart under the human assault. 8 cargo ships drifted powerless, their crews abandoning ship in escape pods. 2 more vessels had been completely destroyed when their reactors overloaded. Only cargo ship number 7 remained untouched. Its crew huddled in terror as human fighters swirled around them like predators. "Admiral, we have lost main power," the engineering officer reported from the Bloodclaw's bridge. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Life support is failing." Thexkar watched his proud ship dying around him and felt something he had not experienced since the human wars. Fear. These were not the desperate, outgunned fighters he remembered from 50 years ago. These were advanced warships flown by pilots who fought with deadly precision. "Get me a communication channel to Coalition Command," he ordered. "Emergency priority. Communication array is down, sir. I can try to boost the backup transmitter." The lights flickered as more explosions shook the ship. Through the bridge windows, Thexkar could see human fighters finishing off the last of the cargo vessels. Their movements were coordinated, professional, lethal. "There," his communication officer said. "I have a weak signal to command." Thexkar activated his personal transmitter, knowing it might be his last message. "Coalition Command, this is Admiral Thexkar of the Bloodclaw. We are under attack by unknown forces. Repeat, we are under attack." He paused as another explosion rocked the ship. "The attackers are using advanced technology unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be human in origin. I repeat, the humans have returned." Jake Morrison's fighter appeared outside the bridge again, and this time the human pilot raised his hand in a mocking salute. Then his weapons fired one final time, and Admiral Thexkar's transmission ended in static. The battle was over in less than 20 minutes. 11 Coalition ships destroyed. 1 left intact to carry the survivors home with their terrifying story. The human fighters vanished back into the darkness as mysteriously as they had appeared, leaving only wreckage and the beginning of a legend that would spread throughout the galaxy. News of the Coalition convoy's destruction reached every corner of the galaxy within days, carried by merchant ships, refugee vessels, and underground communication networks that the Coalition could never completely control. On distant worlds where alien species lived under the boot of Vorthak rule, whispered conversations spoke of impossible things. Humans were alive, humans were fighting back, and humans were winning. Commander Sean Walker piloted his stealth scout ship through the Andromeda Nebula, following coordinates that Oracle had provided from intercepted neutral communications. The crystalline formations floating in space around him pulsed with their own inner light, creating a maze of beauty that could hide entire fleets. "Unknown vessel, you are entering ethereal collective space without authorization." A voice spoke directly into Sean's mind, the words forming without sound. "State your purpose or be destroyed." Sean had been briefed on ethereal communication methods during his preparation for this mission. The crystal beings did not use radio waves or traditional technology, instead projecting thoughts directly from one consciousness to another. "I am Commander Sean Walker of the human vessel Defiance," he replied, focusing his thoughts as he had been taught. "I request an audience with Prime Crystal. Harmony of purpose regarding matters of mutual interest." The space around his ship shimmered, and suddenly he was surrounded by vessels that seemed to be made of living crystal. They moved with fluid grace, their hulls reflecting and refracting the nebula's light into patterns that hurt his eyes to look at directly. "Follow," the mental voice commanded. "Do not deviate from the assigned course or your vessel will be reduced to component atoms." Sean's ship was escorted deeper into the nebula until they reached a massive structure that defied easy description. It appeared to be a space station grown rather than built, its crystal walls pulsing with energy that flowed like liquid light through organic channels. Inside the station, Sean found himself in a chamber filled with floating crystal beings, each one unique in shape and size but all radiating the same sense of ancient wisdom. At the center of the room, A particularly large crystal pulsed with deep blue light. Human Commander Sean Walker. The thoughts came from the large crystal. I am Prime Crystal Harmony of Purpose. We have been expecting you. Sean felt surprise ripple through his mind before he could control it. You knew we were coming? We have maintained certain capabilities hidden from the Coalition, Harmony of Purpose replied, including the ability to observe events across great distances. We witnessed the destruction of the Vorthak convoy and recognized the tactical signatures as human in origin. The Prime Crystal's light shifted to a warmer shade. More importantly, we have something that belongs to you. The chamber around Sean began to change, the crystal walls becoming transparent to reveal a vast space beyond. In that space, he saw something that made his heart stop. Hundreds of humans moving about their daily lives in what appeared to be a hidden colony. During the Great Purge 50 years ago, we managed to save several hundred human children from the burning worlds, Harmony of Purpose explained. They have grown to adulthood among us, learning both human knowledge and crystal wisdom. A door opened at the far end of the chamber and a group of people walked in. Sean recognized them immediately as human, despite their strange clothing that seemed to shimmer like crystal formations. At the front of the group was a woman about his own age with dark hair and familiar green eyes. Hello, Sean, the woman said, her voice carrying overtones that reminded him of Crystal Song. It's been a long time. Sean stared at her in shock. Ellen Walker? But you died when Earth burned. I saw the reports. His sister smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like the teenager he remembered from so long ago. I was evacuated with 300 other children just hours before the final attack. The ethereals saved us and gave us a home when we had nowhere else to go. Sean reached out and touched her hand, hardly believing she was real. I searched for you for years before we went into hiding. I thought I was the only one left in our family. The ethereals kept us hidden for good reason, Ellen explained. The Coalition would have hunted us down if they knew we existed. But now that you have returned to fight them, we can finally come home. Prime Crystal Harmony of Purpose pulsed with approval. The humans raised among us have learned much during their time here. They understand both technology and consciousness in ways that may prove useful in the coming conflict. Sean looked around at the other humans in the chamber, seeing in their faces a mixture of hope and determination that he recognized from his own crew. Are you willing to join us? The fight ahead will be dangerous. We've been preparing for this day our entire lives, Ellen replied. Every human child saved from the purge was taught about their heritage, their duty to their species, and their responsibility to those still suffering under Coalition rule. A new voice entered the mental conversation, this one carrying the weight of vast age and experience. Commander Walker, I am Deep Memory of Stars, keeper of our historical records. We have maintained detailed observations of Coalition activities throughout this sector. Our intelligence may prove valuable to your cause. Images began flowing directly into Sean's mind, showing Coalition ship movements, supply routes, military installations, and defensive positions throughout neutral space. The amount of information was staggering, representing decades of careful observation by beings who could remain hidden in plain sight. The Coalition has grown careless in their dominance. Deep Memory of Stars continued. They patrol by schedule rather than strategy. They trust in fear rather than vigilance. These weaknesses can be exploited by those with proper knowledge. Sean felt hope growing in his chest as he realized the magnitude of what he had found. Not only were there hundreds more humans alive, but they came with allies who possessed intelligence networks that spanned half the galaxy. There are others who remember the old days. Harmony of Purpose added. The Andromedan Free States maintain neutrality through strength, but their leaders speak privately of the need for change. The machine intelligences of the synthesis calculate that Coalition expansion threatens all independent thought. Even some within Coalition space grow weary of Vorthak rule, Ellen said. We have monitored communications from conquered worlds. Resistance movements exist on dozens of planets waiting for someone to light the spark of rebellion. Sean activated his communication system to contact the Defiance. Ghost Base, this is Diplomat 1. Mission successful beyond all expectations. Requesting immediate extraction for 400 passengers. Jake Morrison's voice came back strong and clear. Copy Diplomat 1, we're already moving to your position. Lisa has been modifying the ship's life support systems based on Oracle's calculations. We'll have room for everyone. As Sean prepared to return to his ship with his newly discovered family and allies, Prime Crystal Harmony of Purpose offered one final gift. Human Commander, we will share with you the locations of hidden Coalition supply depots and research facilities. Strike these targets and you will cripple their ability to respond to widespread rebellion. The crystal being's light pulsed with what Sean somehow knew was amusement. The Coalition believes they destroyed humanity 50 years ago. They are about to discover that they merely scattered the seeds of their own destruction across the galaxy. When those seeds finally bloom, the harvest will be their downfall. Sean looked at his sister and the other humans who had survived against impossible odds, then at the alien allies who had protected them for decades. The war against the Coalition had just become something much larger than a simple campaign of revenge. It had become a galactic awakening that would reshape the very foundations of civilized space. The rebellion began on 17 worlds simultaneously, coordinated through encrypted channels that the Coalition had never detected. On Meridian Prime, workers in the mining colonies turned their industrial equipment into weapons and overwhelmed their guards. On Kepler 7, the underground resistance emerged from hidden bunkers with weapons supplied by mysterious ships that appeared and vanished like ghosts. Admiral Kate Phillips stood on the bridge of the liberated Coalition dreadnought Vengeance, watching through the viewports as human fighters danced between enemy vessels in the space around Zephyr Prime. The prison ship that had held her for decades was now a weapon in her hands, crewed by freed prisoners from a dozen different species who had suffered under Coalition rule. Admiral, the human fleet is requesting final targeting coordinates, her tactical officer reported. Commander Ryan Clark had been a prisoner on the same ship, a former human naval officer who had spent 20 years planning for this moment. Kate studied the tactical display showing the battle raging around the Coalition capital world. The UNS Defiance hung in space like a predator surrounded by prey, its weapons tearing through Coalition shields that had been designed to stop the primitive human technology of 50 years ago. Around the massive supercarrier, dozens of smaller human vessels moved in perfect coordination, each one built in the secret shipyards that Oracle had constructed throughout the galaxy. Target the orbital defense platforms first, Kate ordered. Once those are down, we can begin landing troops on the surface. The space around Zephyr Prime erupted in light as human weapons found their marks. The Coalition's mighty defense network, built to protect their capital from any conceivable attack, crumbled under the assault of technology that should not have existed. Each platform that died sent shockwaves through the remaining Coalition forces as they realized their most powerful defenses were useless. Supreme Chancellor Vexithol watched the destruction from his bunker deep beneath the planet's surface. Around him, his advisors argued desperately about surrender terms and escape plans, but he could barely hear them over the sound of his own thoughts. Everything he had built, everything the Vorthak Empire had achieved was falling apart in a matter of hours. How is this possible? He whispered, staring at the tactical screens that showed human ships appearing throughout Coalition space. We destroyed them. We hunted down every ship, every colony, every trace of their existence. General Krickstar's mandibles clicked nervously as he studied the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Chancellor, we are receiving surrender requests from 14 sector commands. Our forces are abandoning their posts rather than face the human fleets. On the main display, the image shifted to show Admiral Rex Thorne, the human collaborator who had served the Coalition faithfully since Earth's destruction. His ship, the Betrayer, hung disabled in space after taking direct hits from Jake Morrison's fighter squadron. Chancellor, this is Admiral Thorne. The transmission crackled with interference from battle damage. The humans have offered terms for my surrender. They want to speak with you directly. Vexthul felt his world crashing down around him as he realized the magnitude of his defeat. The humans had not just survived his genocide, they had thrived, grown stronger, and returned with allies he had never imagined possible. Crystalline ships from the ethereal collective moved alongside human vessels, their weapons adding to the devastating barrage. Andromedan Free State cruisers provided cover for landing craft filled with liberation forces. Open a channel, Vexthul ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The display changed to show the bridge of the UNS Defiance. Captain Alex Turner stood at the center of the command deck, surrounded by officers from multiple species working together in harmony. Behind him, Jake Morrison monitored the tactical situation while Lisa Parker coordinated the technical aspects of the assault. Supreme Chancellor Vexthul, Turner said, his voice carrying across the void between ships. "I am Captain Alex Turner of the United Nations Ship Defiance. You are hereby ordered to surrender all Coalition forces immediately." "You cannot make demands of me, human," Vexthul hissed, though his words lacked conviction. "The Coalition controls hundreds of systems, thousands of ships. You are still vastly outnumbered." Turner smiled grimly. "Oracle, show the Chancellor our current fleet strength." The display split to show tactical readouts from across the galaxy. Human ships were emerging from hidden bases throughout Coalition space, each one more advanced than anything the Vorthak had ever built. Automated factories had been producing vessels and weapons for decades, all controlled by the artificial intelligence that had never stopped preparing for this moment. "You see, Chancellor, we learned something during our exile," Turner continued. "Humans don't just build ships. We build hope. Every species you conquered, every world you enslaved, every person you oppressed has been waiting for someone to show them that tyrants can be defeated. On a dozen different worlds, the populations rose up against their Coalition overlords, the Meridians, the Centaurians, the Rigelians, and countless other species joined the fight. No longer afraid now that they had seen the impossible, humanity had returned from extinction to challenge the most powerful empire in the galaxy. "The Coalition fleet is breaking apart," Commander Clark reported from the Vengeance. "Half the Kresh commanders are retreating to their home systems. The remaining Vorthak ships are requesting permission to withdraw." Kate Phillips watched as Admiral Thorne's vessel was tractored into the Defiance's hangar bay. The human who had betrayed his own species would face justice, but more importantly, his surrender marked the end of Coalition naval resistance in this system. "Chancellor," Turner's voice came through the communication channel one final time. "Your choice is simple. Surrender now and your people will be treated with the same mercy you showed others, or continue this fight and face the consequences. But understand this. Humanity has returned not for conquest, but for justice." The tactical display showed Coalition ships throughout the galaxy laying down their weapons as news of their capital's fall spread. Resistance movements that had waited decades for this moment emerged into the light, ready to rebuild their worlds without the shadow of oppression. Vexthul looked around his bunker at the faces of his advisors, seeing fear and resignation in their eyes. Outside, he could hear the sound of human landing craft touching down on the surface of his world. The empire he had built through fear and violence was ending not with a glorious last stand, but with the quiet collapse of a system that had forgotten how to inspire loyalty instead of terror. "I surrender," he said quietly, the words tasting like ashes in his mouth. As the Coalition's formal surrender was transmitted throughout the galaxy, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Defiance and looked out at the stars. 50 years ago, humanity had been driven to the edge of extinction. Today, they had not only returned but had become the catalyst for the greatest liberation in galactic history. The age of the Coalition was over. The age of cooperation was about to begin.